There's a myth out there that people should just be able to sit their butts in a chair and write a book, right? Just pour it out of your head onto the page and you'll have a book eventually. Well, if only that were true, more of us would be published authors. But what I find is that most new authors do better when they get some clarity up front. I'm Amy Collette of Unleash Your Inner Author, and I love to help impact-driven leaders to leave their legacy in print. And what that means is that I start with authors at the very beginning, at idea stage, and help them all the way through the writing process and the publishing process, so they get to hold their beautiful printed book in their hand as published authors at the end. In our first episode, Megan and I had a discussion about what it was going to be like for her to go through the 2-day intensive retreat. And what was really fun about that conversation is that it came out that she just really wanted to start writing the book and wasn't sure why we needed to spend all this time doing the prep work. So when I explained that that was a decision filter for everything that was going to happen later in the book, every decision she needed to make during the process, she could just run it through her filter of, does it meet my mission? Does it serve my reader? And does it serve my own goals as an author and entrepreneur? So when that became clear, you could see on Megan's face and her whole body, and you could probably hear it in her voice, that she got it. And she was like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. And it changed her whole energy into one of excitement. And you'll get a glimpse behind the scenes a little bit into what that process looked like at the end and how we came up with the outline for her book in this episode. So ups and downs of the journey. So this is something I like to talk about just to let you know what could potentially happen. It doesn't happen for everyone.
Yeah. I'm familiar with this graph.
Yeah. Have you seen this before?
I have. Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of like hero's journey, really, if you're talking about writing and stories and stuff. It's a natural human process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you start out like you're up here in the honeymoon period, where, I think yours is a little tempered, because you're not like off the charts excited and like, oh my God, this is the culmination of my life. I mean, and that's probably good.
I think so.
Yeah. And so because you don't know everything that you don't know yet, right?
Yes, that's true.
You haven't started the process. So I see this happen kind of, after a few writing sessions and people are like, oh, they're feeling those ups and downs of like, oh, sometimes it's going well and sometimes it's really a struggle. And I thought it would come more easily or something. And so they kind of know what they're in for, and they hit this sort of bottom point.
I'm a big fan of informed pessimism.
Informed pessimism. Yeah. But you just keep going, and like you're well familiar with this. You have your coping mechanisms of, washing the dishes or feeding the chickens or whatever it is that you do.
The chickens are pretty reliably going to amuse you into a better mood.
Yeah. Almost any pet is like that, right?
Yeah. Well, no, right now I'm furious at my cats. They just killed 3 tomato seedlings. Yeah, I'm going to make them into mittens.
See, this happens with gardening too. You plant and you're all excited, and then, then you got to keep weeding and weeding and weeding and doing all the things and waiting forever. And you're down here, and then things start to, get ripe and you can eat them and you're all on the upswing again. So it happens with everything. So do you feel like you've experienced this before?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is the path of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're down here at the bottom, what's your best skill or coping mechanism?
Stop whining and get back to work. That's why God made deadlines.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why we use spreadsheets and all those things to keep track, right? Okay. So, you can get unstuck. That's the important part. You've been there before. It's not a new thing. You can do this. So yeah, I often get a call kind of in the middle of the process, before I started talking about this more.
Mhm.
I'd get the call. Hey, Amy, I'm gonna have to postpone for a while because fill in the
Yep.
blank. Then we have the difficult conversation about, okay, what's going on? And let's talk about other things you can do besides just, put the book on hold for indefinitely.
Ever.
Yeah, or maybe ever.
Yeah.
It stops some people. And that's sad to me.
That is, yeah.
You know,
But no, this is totally comfortable with this. That's like the process, like the conference that we run. And I mean, I know that 90% of ticket sales are going to happen in the last week. That's how it goes. That's how it every time it goes. But every time, 46 weeks, it's like, oh my God, no one's going to come. It's going to be terrible. But you said you were going to do it, so you do it anyway. And then a bunch of people buy on the last day.
yeah. Okay, create your roadmap. So we're not going to be looking at the
Roadmap.
screen too much for this, but I do,
Okay.
Because this is an activity, right? So the thing I do, okay, so I think for you, let me take a deep breath here first and think about this,
Okay.
because I want to do this in a way that works for you.
Mhm.
So I have a process that I use. And you'll let me know if it's working for you. But you like structure, like you're not resisting structure, right? That you
I
need.
love structure.
Okay. Yeah. So this is again refreshing for me, because I know how important the structure is. I see people be more successful if they have structure and they don't fight it.
Yeah.
Because some people think that structure is going to box them in or whatever, but structure is there to help you, and it's not written in stone.
Yeah. Ultimate creativity comes from restriction.
Yes. Yeah. Having some constraints.
Yeah.
Right. Because this book isn't just everything.
No.
It's a certain path.
Exactly. Yeah.
I use that metaphor a lot: path, the journey, and adventure, but and you're just like, if you're taking a trip, you kind of need to know where you're going first, and then you kind of need to know where you're going second, so you're not constantly in that decision making mode.
Mhm.
You've already plotted it out for yourself. So that's what we're going to be doing. And so
Awesome.
you have a terrific start with your 5 elements.
Mhm.
Right now, those are absolutely essential. And I don't know if those are 5 separate chapters, or if those are, I don't know how that looks, but I think that's probably the place to start is writing down the 5 elements, and then you can flesh those out. But then we'll talk about what else is important.
So what's kind of why am I doing this?
Okay. So really, part of it is to get a little out of your head, about how it must be, if you
Mhm.
have that. Otherwise, it's just really, it's what I call brain flow, just to get the ideas down on paper, on computer, or whatever, so that you know what you want to do, and then you can play with the order, the setup, the flow, of how that wants to look. Because like I said, I don't know if those 5 elements are, each one is a chapter.
Well, that's what we need to figure out, right? Like, guys, I guess I understand the concept of putting different ideas on different things and then moving them around, but I don't understand how that helps create an outline for a book.
Okay. So it's just, this is a movable way to do it. Do you have an idea, a pretty solid idea of what your outline should be?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know what is going to be the best way to achieve the goal of convincing people that this is a good idea and they should hire us to do it.
Right. Right. So, I might take you back, and I don't know that either, right?
Yeah.
It's your book. But you already have a flow with your customers.
Mhm.
So the convincing them part is in, starts probably long before they talk to you, right? Because they've been referred to you for the most part.
Mhm.
So someone else has done a little bit of the selling for you already.
Yeah.
So they've been educated, they they need something. They're looking for something. So I would, if you want to do this in a, see, I usually do this in an unstructured way to start with, and then put the structure together. But you really like your structure and you think that way.
I think so. I find it, I can't really work without it.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe we start higher level and talk about where do you start with somebody? What are the
Good
main
idea.
bits that are important for someone to know? Because I assume you're showing kind of your process, right, of how to do it, but there are pieces before and after that, I assume.
I never actually thought about that. I don't know what should be in it. I
Okay,
mean,
so
like, yeah.
let me give you an example. Okay, so I just wrote a book, I think fairly similar to what you in terms of structure to what you want to do, and it's in 3 parts. Okay, 3 sections, and this is a great way to start. Yours may or may not be in 3 sections, like Amy Simpkins is in 3 sections. Because there's the middle part of it is kind of the showing how things are done. So the first part is understanding what's going on. So in my book, it's about how to write a book. I say here the things that I think authors need before they start writing the book, and that's what we've been doing in the last 2 days, right?
Okay.
They need they need to know their mission, their readers, their themselves as an author, and they need to have some structure.
Yeah.
Around. And I throw in a couple other things that are a bonus, like community. Some people really like to have community and you have that with your team, that sort of thing. So that's what I talk about. Like these are kind of the things I think are important and are going to set you up for success. The second part is really case studies. That's why I was talking a lot about case studies. They're stories, they're interviews that I've done with my authors who have struggled with different things, and some of those are perfectionism, managing their time, procrastination, afraid they won't get it done, they won't finish it, they won't complete it, afraid it won't be good enough. Those kinds of things. And so I have 8 author interviews, and each of those chapters is organized in the same way, has a certain flow.
Okay.
And then the third part is, okay, how do you actually do it? How do you actually start doing this yourself? So it's the implementation more. And you don't have to give away all your secret sauce. There, but you want to give people enough of a glimpse into it. So the actual super do-it-yourselfers that are never going to hire a coach or a production company to do it, they could actually at least get going with that.
Totally.
Right. So you're going to be helping those people. You're giving them massive value. The other people are going to go, oh my God, that's so much work. I'm just going to hire Megan to do it.
That's really what we go for. It's like we tell absolutely everything because our customer is going to be like, oh, absolutely not. No way are we doing all of that ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So you kind of want to like open the Pandora's box and show all the chaos that it can be if you don't have somebody helping you with it,
Okay.
So what's the actual, making the sausage look like? So that's an option that might work for you. But when you think of if you're coming at it from sort of a 3-section approach, how would you explain that, or what would you put in those sections?
Oh, well, if it's 3 sections, then it's design, refine, create, and track. So like designing a show for a particular goal or refining a show for a particular goal, then doing it, and then tracking the results.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
So in design refine, that can have a little bit of, should you be podcasting? The answer may surprise you. And then introducing the concept of the blueprints. In the implementation, so the actually doing it, we can talk about the process. 3 C's of podcasting. A little of your basics, like here's how to not sound like you're in a tin can, recording basics.
Uh-huh.
I am not going to assume at all that they're doing their own editing in-house. So I'm going to assume, here's how you work, how you find and work with a good producer.
Oh, perfect.
And then tracking. And tracking should maybe actually, because the order that you do it in is design, implement, then track, but you need to understand designing tracking before you can implement effectively. So maybe that actually needs to go first. What do you think?
What's more important to your reader? Do they care up front about the tracking, or do they sort of become a convert to the tracking after?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the tracking that's the premise that makes this different.
Yeah.
Right. It's
True.
so.
Yeah, maybe it does need to come. Maybe
Yeah, and like anything that I have to say about implementation process, how to record, like literally every podcasting book will have exactly the same details because it's like math. It just is, record in a good space, have a good editor. There's nothing unique or interesting about it. Like it should be there for hygiene, but it's not.
Yeah, but it's not your differentiator.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the tracking, well, the design and the tracking, I think, are both your differentiators.
Exactly.
So the implementation is like, I mean, you probably do it a little bit differently than other people because it's based on the design and the tracking.
You're right, because there is. I wonder if implementation is the wrong thing to have here.
Depends on what so this goes back to your decision filters. Like, is the mission of your book to tell people how to implement?
Yeah, it's not. Anyone can tell them how to implement.
Okay, and so what else? So with those 5 elements go somewhere. Is that in the design refine?
Yeah, so we'll do that in the kind of the opening, explaining the theory of here's the thing that we use, here's how we do it. And so kind of first half of the book is explaining what this is and why it works. And then we'll go into sort of the choose your own adventure type thing, and they can use the rest as a reference for how to actually optimize shows for these individual types of things. And this actually does make room for including more of the implementation type stuff, like your recording basics and whatnot. That can just be another reference section at the end, so you don't have to buy another book.
I like that. I like that. And I think it really elevates your expertise, because you're just saying this is a reference section, this is not
Yeah,
that you see on, this is the book that everyone else is writing. And for us, it's just a reference section.
exactly. Yeah, everyone else's book is about, do all these things, and that's the footnote. That's
Yeah.
I like that positioning of it.
I think you could feel Megan's excitement. And what was really interesting was her process. So it's something I've never really seen before. But as she talked through, the big aha moment for both of us really was that her differentiator is defined. And defining that changed the entire outcome of what the outline was going to be. So what she was going to start with was implementation. And then I asked a few questions about what's most important to the reader. And when she switched her perspective from what she had already had in her mind about how the book might look, and she switched it to her reader's perspective, she was coming at it from that teaching moment, from that expert teaching that she does with her clients. And so it came out that the differentiator is not implementation. Implementation is the same, regardless of what kind of podcast you have. Her differentiators are about how she helps decide what kind of podcast you want to have, what kind of metrics you want to track, and how you know if it's successful, and on and on. I'll let you read more about that in her book when it comes out. But it really does distinguish her approach as different, and that's key. So it changed how she's approaching the teaching aspect.
So we got kind of the theory section, we'll call it for now, real title TBD. So who
Yep.
should podcast and why? Why podcasting is such a problem for so many businesses and why it doesn't work so well? Because because the business is the client of the podcast and it must be served, and most people aren't taking that into account when they're doing their planning. Then we'll kind of extend that conversation with the blueprints, what they are, how they solve the problem, how to use them, and that'll be like the definition of here's what they are. Then how to use them as a strategic decision-making filter in your high-level goals. And then you kind of, after choosing that, you can pick your individual metrics that are going to bring value to your business, identify, optimize, and track specific value that they create within your business, and then the importance of tracking and accurate value attribution. So then we get into the choose your own adventure section. It's how to make these decisions for your business. Blueprint first, then exercise restraint about the number of metrics that you're going to be optimizing for.
Okay.
So how and how many to choose. And then this is just a question for me later. Should I organize them according to blueprint? Maybe, maybe not. Then for each individual metric, the type of business it can work well for, blueprints it works with or doesn't work with, so that we'll basically do that strategic decision-making filter for them. Give them an example, how to optimize the show to include it, priorities in recording, production, and promotion to get most of that benefit. Maybe the cost or bandwidth on a team required could be interesting, how to track it and how to evaluate the success or failure. And then we'll do that for each of the metrics that we want to include. And I'm thinking, I was getting to something here, and it's in some way in each of these indicate that we can do this for them without any work other than talking on their part. Just indicate that in some way. And then the reference section will have implementation, the 3 C's, recording environment, working with a producer, promotion guidelines, every other podcast book.
Yep. Yep.
I feel really great about this. How does it strike you as the expert?
This makes me super happy. I'm, first of all, glad that you feel good about it. Does it, is it different from what you thought it might be, or had you? Okay.
It is. I thought it was going to be about the blueprints and each of the blueprints, and then within them talking about different things, but I think that is not actually the most sensible to go. It does not, most effectively help the reader that we want to help make the decisions for their show. Because ultimately the blueprints aren't the thing they need to choose. It's the outcome for their business that they want to choose. And the blueprints are just the mechanism by which we help them make that decision. I think this is much better. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was starting to get a clue about that this morning when I was thinking about, man, I don't think the blueprints are each a separate, standalone sort of chapter. But yeah, and I like that they're really close up to the front of the book.
Yeah.
So that gets highlighted right away.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really just the really quick, should I do this thing? Well, will it help me build relationship? Yes, no. That's really their prime function.
Is there any place where you feel like, not sure how that's going to work, or, and of course, you have to figure some of it out, but potential places where you could get stuck, or where you might need to, talk to Audra to say, oh, hey, how are we going to do this? Or places I can support you to talk you through it.
I am completely confident that there will be. I am dead sure that there are going to be those moments in time. Right now, I'm feeling like I've got a book outline.
I'm feeling like that too.
And I like that feeling.
Celebrate. Let's celebrate.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I've gone from I should write a book to I have an outline in 5 hours. Not bad, Amy.
Yeah. Yeah. You've had at least a couple other breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Along that, really connecting your client to the book, your who you can actually help.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And that will help you keep you grounded in you sort of that feeling of service. How are you serving your clients, as well as your own goals. Okay. Is there a place that in the outline, as you look at it, that springs out to say, oh my God, I want to write that first?
I want to do the individual metrics. Oh man, do I love a rubric. I'm the biggest nerd you have ever worked with. Yeah, I'm super excited to write all of those.
Okay. Okay. So it might be fun. It might be fun to start with one, to kind of write
Yeah,
so that you have your template for how you're going to write those and see
totally.
if the way you've kind of sketched it out works, or it needs to be slightly rearranged or whatever. So if that makes you happy, and that sounds like fun, then do that first.
Okay.
You have just, yeah, you won this module too, big time.
Well, you created a really great framework to work in here too. Like this is your work that you are performing very, very well, and it is working excellently.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. So that makes me want to ask you the question. This
Mhm.
is kind of a podcast question.
Yeah.
Is, so feeling a little bit of resistance on Thursday when we talked.
Yeah.
What's changed for you now?
I guess for me, I'm feeling so like I've gone from, okay, we're writing a book and that's the thing that we're doing this year, to oh, I'm going to write a book. Now it feels like this really exciting thing that I get to do and it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is like an amazing shift from the beginning to now. And I think a lot of it, I think, was your flexibility with the process and kind of not because I know you've got very good reasons for going through all the things that you do with people, and especially working on books that are more personal in nature and less reference guidey, like digging into fears and potential roadblocks, and just your flexibility and kind of letting me focus on where I am more excited rather than doing this sort of, I guess, inner work. And I don't want to say that I don't need, but that is not effective to me personally at this point in the process. So I think you're being flexible, and that was just huge in terms of me getting over the resistance to the process.
Great. Thank you for that. Anything else come up for you
Uh, I'd like you to respond to that, actually. What do you think?
about that being flexible kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate you not feeling like you had to fit into, like square peg into round hole kind of thing.
Mhm.
Is saying, that doesn't really work for me, or that, asking me to rephrase a question, or tell you why it mattered. As a
Mhm.
coach, that helps me tremendously, right? To be able, because just like as an editor, I should be able to explain every change to you. Now, I should be able to say, here's why I think if you switch these two paragraphs, switch the order of them, why it works better.
Mhm.
And if you don't agree, we're switching them back, you know? But I should be able to explain everything and be able to tell you why it matters, why you should care, or let's not use
Mhm.
it. So it was a bit of a challenge, honestly, because your approach is really different from
Mhm.
the way I'm used to working. And I also know this process works.
Mhm.
I've had other people resist it. That's not that unusual, because people just want to get started writing. And they're like, why
Mhm.
do we have to do all this upfront other stuff? But that's my differentiator, right? That's what sets me apart from other writing programs, is because I know it matters to spend this time doing this work, because it helps all the way through the rest of the process. Because, as you call it, the decision filter, you have those things to always go back to, and it's the foundation for everything else. And so it's worth spending 2 days on.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know
no, and it is like I think, and we talked about this, and for those listening, in the first episode you'll have heard, I was hesitant about devoting 2 whole days to kind of what at the time I felt like was fluff. But I have come to very much understand that it is not fluff, and now I've got an actual I've got a tool to use to write my own book. And so, Amy, hats off to your process, and knowing that, while it is flexible to the individual person, which is amazing, there's a reason for it and it needs to be done.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you take away with you some of that joy and excitement that Megan had at the end of our 2-day intensive retreat. It was a really creative, powerful time for her to bring her story to life. She also has a more clear definition and understanding of her client than I see in most authors. That's something that will really help her moving forward. And I think it brings to light her marketing experience. Of course, that's a place where she would deeply understand her ideal reader. So it's different every time with every author. So it's really important that just like Megan did, she stayed flexible throughout the process and stayed open to whatever was going to come her way and whatever ideas were going to drop in. And so did I. As a coach, I need to work with the author where they are and with their unique talents, their perspective, and whatever questions they're going to throw at me. So the next thing for her is to actually start the writing part. And we talked a little bit before about the Valley of Despair, and she may or may not experience that in her first writing venture. So we'll catch up with her next time and see how she's doing after she starts writing the actual book. During our conversation, Megan asked me about calls to action in the book. Should she make calls to action? Which is, hey, if you want help with any of this stuff, give me a call, contact me. And I say, yes, I think you should. You're talking to your target market in your book, and those people want to do the thing that you are teaching them to do. Not all of them are going to do it by themselves. Some are going to reach out and want to have some support and guidance along the way. And I will demonstrate one for you right now with my call to action, which is, hey, if you're thinking about writing a book and you don't know where to start, I want to talk to you. I want to help educate you, answer your questions. You can start with my book. You can start with some of the free resources on my site, or book a call with me at unleashyourinnerauthor.com/call.